Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you as always for stopping by. Let me start with a wow. Turkish lira sank at one point more than 20% lower and above 7. We've seen a small recovery, just below 7 again. But my piece over the weekend was regarding Erdogan and cold Turkey, and I'll get to that in a moment. The door is very big when you want to go in, and it's a mouse hole when you want to go out. The really big contagion effect happens when people have to sell good assets to cover losses on bad assets. That took me back to mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and I said if volatility spikes, positions are going to be reduced en masse. Or to put it another way, and to borrow the lyrics from the Eagles' Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, we are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. And I said, then what is clear is we're at the fag end of this party. Emerging market assets got killed this Monday as the market contagion from Turkey spreads. This is David Inglis, putting the history of a parabolic currency devaluation into perspective. This is Peter Brandt, the chartist. Home Thoughts, V.S. Naipaul passed away. He lived from 1932 to 2018, was a fantastic writer. Some people aren't happy with him because he was quite forthright. My endeavor in writing has always been to discover anew, to see the world and put together the words that reflect it. In our blood and bone and brain, we carry the memories of thousands of beings. The only lies for which we are truly punished are those we tell ourselves. And finally, anybody can be decisive during a panic. It takes a strong man to act during a boom. I've been reading some more Richard Kapuscinski, and he said this: it is difficult to write in a world of such a violent and deep transformation. Everything slips from underneath the feet. The symbols change, signs are reversed, orientation points no longer have places of permanence. The vision of the writer wanders over ever new and unknown landscapes, and his voice is lost in the roar of the running avalanche of history. It was World Elephant Day over the weekend. This is a photograph of an ostrich and elephants in the background that I took in the Amboseli. This is of a bull elephant that we met as we drove in the forest in Lewa. This is another photograph. Just look at the behind of this elephant, walking like a ballerina. You can't even hear them take a step. Again, the Amboseli. And then the Samburu elephants crossing the Iwaso-Nyiro River. I have no regrets because I've done everything I could to the best of my ability. Robert Redford. Velasco has been studying and photographing the Volcán de Colima, which is one of the most active volcanoes in Latin America and also known as the Volcano of Fire. Before he captured the striking photograph, Velasco had been carefully tracking an increase in activity and closely watched the volcano for almost a month. Political reflections. Keeping turmoil away from Xinjiang is the greatest human right. This is an article in Global Times. Xinjiang is at a special stage of development where there is no room for destructive Western public opinions. Peace and stability must come above all else. With this as the goal, all measures can be tried. We must hold on to our belief that keeping turmoil away from Xinjiang is the greatest human right. Xinjiang is China's territory. It is led by the Communist Party of China and operates according to Chinese laws. Whoever tries to incite violent confrontation there will only head down a dead end. and national solidarity is the only way forward for Xinjiang's future. It remains a laboratory experiment of state surveillance, coercive, intrusive state surveillance. Damn, Omarosa was not even on my Trump Russia bingo card. Mr. Orban replied, no, I like chaos because I can build a new order from this chaos, an order that I want. Finally, these are photographs from Salgado, contemporary photographer in Kuwait during the time of the Gulf War. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 113.87, dollar index 96.27, Japanese yen 110.32, Swissy 0.9931, the pound 127.51, the Aussie 0.7273, India rupee fresh all-time low above 69, South Korean won 1135.38, Brazilian real 385.82, Egyptian pound 17.9140, and the rand, which had this most extraordinary sell-off, is around 14.67, having gone above 15. Dollar index, this is a chart from Sun Chartist, got to be long, stop at 95, target 100 now. Euro dollar 113.87, we're well below that key level of 115.15 which held for so long. Sterling weakens for an 8th straight day against the dollar, matching the longest run of daily losses since the Brexit vote. Last trading 127.50. Gold, which has been hanging in there but has fallen quite sharply this morning. 12.02, this must be somebody buying around that 1200 level. Crude oil $67.10, not being sold off aggressively because of the cross currents that we've got going on between Khamenei and Trump. Emerging markets, Turkey is now seen more likely to default on its debt than Greece, which is rated 4 notches lower by Moody's. My article on the weekend, Cold Turkey. Harold Macmillan, when asked what a prime minister feared most, replied, events, dear boy, events. President Erdogan of Turkey, who you will recall cut short a state visit to Kenya a while back, has been president of Turkey since 2014. He previously served as prime minister from 2003 to 2014 and mayor of Istanbul from 1994 to 1998. He founded the Justice and Development Party in 2001, leading it to general election victories in 2002, 2007 and 2011 before standing down upon his election as president in 2014. At an exchange rate of 5.6 to the dollar, per capita GDP is just under $8,000. The same as in 2006, which equates to 12 years of no growth, and down a third since hitting a peak of more than $12,000 in 2013. But still more than double the level when the AKP took power in 2002. That was Charlie Robertson via Twitter. On Friday, the Turkish lira death spiraled lower, at one point trading an eye-popping 20% lower, an active repeated today. Before recovering some of its losses to close minus 10% on the day, the lira has collapsed 16% over a week, 20% over 4 weeks, and 40% in 2018. Turkey is now seen more likely to default on its debt than Greece, which is rated 4 notches lower by Moody's. In 1998, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher told the House of Commons, there is no way in which one can buck the market. President Erdogan, like Xi Jinping, finds himself caught in the strongman conundrum. If you are the strongman and have placed yourself on a pedestal, then you own the problem. President Erdogan remains a limit short trading position. President Erdogan said, don't get high on your ambitions. You won't be able to make money on the back of this nation. You won't be able to make this nation kneel. They have already made a ton of money and you are kneeling, Mr. President. And then, even if they got dollars, we got our people, our God. In the markets. That's called a Hail Mary pass. Erdogan repeated his call to Turks to sell dollars, euros and support the lira. Turks are doing exactly the opposite. The proximate cause for this currency crisis has of course been the detention of the US pastor Andrew Brunson, but Erdogan and his son-in-law had already been advocating their own version of voodoo economics, and to quote Sid Verma, who would have thought that unhedged large foreign debt, politicized monetary policy, soaring inflation, a current account deficit, geopolitical troubles, an autocratic lurch, and weak sentiment for emerging markets could create a currency crisis? President Trump, an avowed linguistic warfare specialist, has embraced coercive sanction and financial warfare. Look at Venezuela, where the Bolivar is cratered 2 million %, Iran minus 30%, China, where his tariff warfare has Xi Jinping reeling. JP Morgan was reported as suggesting there is a risk that Trump sells dollars in order to damp down the dollar. In fact, if Trump wanted to press his advantage, he should buy the dollar, not sell it. The dollar is currently seriously weaponized. Late Friday, Trump doubled down on his short lira position via tweet. I have just authorized a doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminium with respect to Turkey as their currency. The Turkish lira slides rapidly downward against our very strong dollar. Aluminium will now be 20% and steel 50%. Our relations with Turkey are not good at this time. President Trump seems to be relishing his financial warfare strategies. He has Khamenei on the run, Maduro in Venezuela is being attacked by a remote-controlled drone. Xi suddenly looks ever so fragile. President Erdogan is a Shakespearean figure. He has slayed enemies, real and not real. His chest has been puffed up with pride. He even rescued the Emir of Qatar. But he has now met his match, that match being the markets. I hope he still has Madame Lagarde's number on speed dial. Such is the ultimate bonfire of populist vanity. The populist leaders, with their cheering and cheerleading claques, have drunk their own Kool-Aid, and therein lies our ultimate salvation. They will be driven over the edge. The edge, there is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have crossed over. I was saying President Erdogan is right at that edge. EM currency volatility, this is from Bloomberg. Turkey's lira has now depreciated more than Nigerian naira and the Angolan kwanza since the 2014 crash in oil prices. Indian rupee fell 0.9% to 69.475, which is a record low. Tanzila Kambrani is Pakistan's first lawmaker of African descent. If you've got time, watch this documentary from 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and it's about Africans who live in India. Coming to sub-Saharan Africa, battle for Africa, Russia pushes into free country for the taking in attempted to rival the West. Newsweek. There are new guests at the ruined palace where Emperor Jean Bedel Bokassa once held court. During his rule over the Central African Republic in the 1970s, Bokassa used a year's worth of development aid to stage an extravagant coronation, and he personally oversaw the torture of prisoners. He fed some to his pet crocodiles and lions, but the French government that helped install Bokassa in 1966 ousted him in 1979, deploying paratroopers to prevent any counter-coup. Now, 4 decades later, it is Russian soldiers who mill around this crumbling estate in Berengo. And the shifting power dynamic is raising concerns in the West. President Putin is pushing into Africa, forging new partnerships and rekindling Cold War-era alliances. There will be a battle for Africa, says Evgeny Korentsayov, head of Russian African Studies at the Russian Academy of Sciences, and it will grow, he says. Very interesting essay, well worth reading in full. The military is a corporation, Daily Maverick, talking about Zimbabwe. The key point flowing from this is that the Marangan diamond operations consolidated the transformation of the military into a corporation. In other words, as it had done in the DRC, the military went way beyond its core constitutional mandate of being a body responsible for the defense of Zimbabwe to a corporation involved in business which appears to almost exclusively have benefited its directors, being the military hierarchy. There is no evidence that the vast profits generated by the military's diamond mining in both the DRC and Marange ever trickled down to benefit rank-and-file soldiers. Since there is little to suggest that Mnangagwa is any less a political fig leaf than Robert Mugabe was, the power matrix created by the November coup has not changed. But for the military coup, Mnangagwa would still be in exile and is entirely dependent on the support of the military hierarchy to remain in power. The cabinet is dominated by the same military figures involved in the DRC, the 2008 political violence in the Marange diamond fields, namely Chiwenga, Shiri, and Sibusi Moyo. I have deliberately not mentioned Gukurahundi, but it must be stated in this context that Chiwenga and Shiri were also the two principal army commanders most responsible for those atrocities. Chiwenga, then called Dominic Chinenge, was the commander of No. 1 Brigade, which provided all the logistical support needed by the notorious North Korean-trained 5th Brigade, commanded by Shiri. Mnangagwa was the minister in charge of the CIO, Zimbabwe Secret Police, which provided intelligence to the 5th Brigade, which resulted in the decimation of Joshua and Nkomo's ZANU party structures. The events they were responsible in Matabele land between January 1983 and June 1984 were crimes against humanity. In other words, the same two principal military commanders who have engineered violence in Zimbabwe for the last 38 years are still there. Without their support, Mnangagwa is powerless. In fact, these are all simply layers of lipstick on a pig, and the pig isn't Mnangagwa, he's just another layer of lipstick. The pig is in fact the junta. A junta is defined as a military or political group that rules a country after taking power by force. South African oil shares down 3.03% as the market opening. South African rand just completes one of the best looking longer term cup and handle formations I've seen in a long time. It dropped through 14 for the first time this year. It then dropped through 15, popped almost 10% lower in the early hours. Got to keep an eye on that, but it's eroded all the gains we had in the post-Ramaphosa era. Reuters court jails Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood leader for life. Maiduguri at dawn, 6:37 a.m. Tuesday morning. Nigeria's stock market entered a bear market, down 20% from its peak in January. That's from Paul Wallace. Nigerian oil shares down 7.31% this year. Ghana's stock exchange up 11.16% this year. The UAE will build an oil pipeline connecting Eritrea's port of Assab with Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. It goes back to the story I wrote about the Indian Ocean economy in a port race and everyone looking for optimal geo-economic positioning in the region. Ethiopian Airlines fiscal full-year results, operating revenue up 43% at $3.21 billion, net profit $245 million, roll-on privatization, passenger numbers up 21% to 10.6 million. The Kenyan shilling has gained 2.7% year to date and is the third best performing currency in the world. Improving diaspora remittances, which increased by 71.9% to $266.2 million from $154.9 million, informs us of the strength of the shilling. The NSE itself is trading at a P ratio of 14.1 and a dividend yield of 3.9. Yields on both the 10 and 30-year bonds increased by 0.3 to 7.5% and to 8.6% from 8.3%. NSE 20 is down 10.7%. Kenya's Belt and Road version before everything crumbled. That's from MS Kepler.